So, Hollyoaks, as of the last year or so, has had the best storyline in soap. A storyline where at the time I called it one of the most groundbreaking storylines in soap history of the Frankie and JJ abuse storyline, where her twin brother was going to be controlling, manipulating, and outright abusing her. And I said at this time, it's a very bold thing to do. It's a very important storyline to tell. And alternatively, it's just a really bold step forward for Hollyoaks, trying to tackle a very big taboo subject. But these social issues are what win you awards and what shed a lot of light and expose a lot of truths about some of these less talked about topics, as no one really wants to discuss these sorts of things with how dark and gritty they can be. So when they introduced Frankie and JJ as twins, we saw that they were very close and very together. But it was always that Frankie was the problem child. Frankie was the one causing all the problems. She was jealous. She was constantly lashing out at everyone. And now JJ was the golden boy, great footballer, probably going to sign for United one day. And with that, it kind of led to the difference. But then one instance, at some point, just as they settle in, JJ goes, well, it started off where Frankie made false allegations towards Jack, who, when they were dancing, he put a hand on her back, which she reacted very, very scared to, and everybody's like, what happened? You know, what happened? And what we didn't know at the time is that was how JJ would abuse her. He would say, we're playing school discos now. They'd dance, and he would continue to touch her body, and at the time was very glaring, like, what happened? You know, I said maybe it's the ballet teacher. What happened? What happened? And it was a constant, like, something's really gone wrong here. Someone's been doing some unsavory things, because you don't believe Jack would do it, but you have to believe an allegation, because it wouldn't be, like, unfounded. And it kind of made everybody be like, yeah, Frankie's just a bit of a cow, isn't she? She's not really, you know, why would she be going after Jack? That's horrific. And everybody was against Frankie for a while, but it was only till when JJ came into a bedroom one night and wanted to play school discos where the truth really dawned on everyone. That JJ, her twin brother, is the reason she reacted like that, has been abusing her for years. And the abuse escalated as JJ continued to belittle Frankie and just outright make her believe that she didn't deserve to be loved, which is just categorically untrue. She deserves everything. She deserves happiness. She deserves joy. And she doesn't deserve to be controlled by her abusive twin brother. And gradually it gets worse and worse, and it escalates to a full-blown sexual assault. And multiple times at that, where Frankie is just perpetually trying to get away from JJ, but unfortunately he is just reticent to let her go. And he'll go to many lengths, like following her to a dance school audition in London. And will just never fully give in and never fully allow Frankie to be on her own, because she thinks that if she is allowed to do what she does, she'll be more successful and he won't be able to control her anymore. And it's a really hard storyline to watch because it's so dark and gritty, but still it's acted so exceptionally well. And obviously through time it carries on and gets worse and worse and escalates. But slowly you start to see that Darren and Frankie do have this inherent love. Like, they do have this inherent love, and they do want to appreciate each other. And, like, she wants to allow her dad in, but she knows if she allows him in, ultimately it could all come out. And maybe she'll be exposed as being, like, a wrong un or a freak, for example. So, in the end, Frankie tells Darren about the abuse, and he kind of makes her feel comfortable immediately, makes a silly joke, and she finally confides in him that JJ's... Well, this is also on the day that... This is on the day where JJ's about to have it all. He's about to sign for United. He's about to finally do everything he wanted to do. His time to be the golden boy is happening once again. And now it's his time to show that he is the best. And he's going to do it. But on the day of the signing, Darren realizes that Frankie's a bit uncomfortable around him. And that being JJ. And then once she's locked in a bathroom after JJ tries to celebrate and starts screaming and kicking and crying. After that happens, now it's a bit more of alarming. And then that night when JJ's being celebrated, Darren and Frankie are talking downstairs by themselves. She can't handle it, and Darren wants to know why this happened. Like, why did this happen earlier? So Frankie finally admits that yes, JJ has been abusing me for years, and she can't handle it. And unlike the reaction she expected to have, Darren takes her fully seriously. He fully recognizes that this is, haunting and horrifying and something I'll never be able to forget. But ultimately, she wouldn't have told me if this was fake, and she wouldn't have told me if she was clearly struggling to tell him. There would be no way, there'll be no world where this is a false allegation. So he fully believes her, and then goes to tell Suzanne, who has the opposite reaction. I did miss stuff about Nancy where they claim it also kicked off where JJ attacked Frankie with a shoe when she called him a freak, and it was all on footage. But she was drinking, and she wasn't drinking. She fell down. Nancy was drinking. Frankie was at the top of the stairs. She fell down the stairs, and then JJ's like, "You need to say it was Nancy," which broke up the family for a period of time. So Nancy wasn't really able to be involved. It was just Darren in this instance. So, yeah. So Darren, with the news, tells Suzanne, who says she's lying, says she's jealous, says that why would you say these awful things about your brother? You're just jealous. It's just Frankie all over again. She's doing the same thing. Which is horrific. It's horrific to not believe your daughter when she's telling you something in strict confidence. This sets off a lot of struggles where Jack tries to support JJ a bit, but then ultimately Frankie hears it and is upset, and just reasonable things. Then it continues where they're set to go on trial. The case has gone to court. They've finally done it. JJ did confess in the jail, in the interview, that he did have sex with his sister. So he at least admits that much. But the day of his trial, he falls ill with leukemia, which, as I said before, it's a long way to get to the end. And at this point, everybody's lashing out. Why would they do this? They've just put him in a position to face his comeuppance, to face justice, and now he's going to die, and another abuser is going to die in soap. And it does happen a lot more than you'd like to say. So another person, but for JJ, doesn't die. Frankie is the only one who is a viable bone marrow match, and she has the choice. Do I essentially kill my own brother by not giving him my bone marrow, or do I give him this bone marrow and allow him to survive? And it's a really kind of poignant decision. And in the end, she kind of goes through with it, and she speaks with JJ, and JJ essentially admits his wrongdoings. He admitted that he wanted to control her. He admitted that he was doing it because he was jealous and he wanted her to be less important. He was worried how much further she'd go without him. He didn't want to be left behind. So that's why he'd been abusing her this entire time. And He then records a confession as he thinks he's going to die. So he records a confession saying, yes, I sexually assaulted Frankie. I raped Frankie. I have been abusing her for years. And that with the stem cell treatment, with a bone marrow transplant, he does get better. He does end up getting better. So it continues. And then Darren does go missing for a time period, mostly because the actor got a hair transplant and he wants it to let it grow out and wants to... I mean, it'll be all... hearing how hair transplants work, you have to, like, apply treatment, like, every day for, like, 2-3 weeks. It's miserable. But regardless, Darren eventually comes back for the trial. The trial's set to take place in January, where finally Frankie is going to stand up in court against her abuser and try to argue her side. And she does. And the twist comes where JJ in court decides to renege on his confession. He decides, screw it. I'm going to plead innocence. I'm going to say Frankie made it all up and it was all Frankie's decision. She coerced me. It was her against me and she won. She was just jealous and it's all a fantasy. Where Frankie stands up in court and says, no. You were the one abusing me. I've been sexually assaulted. I've been emotionally abused. I've been sexually abused by my twin. And in the end, it gets to the verdict quite quickly, and Frankie's done all she can, and Darren's done all he can, and Nancy's done all she can. But at the podium, about to get the verdict, JJ finally admits it. He finally admits, it was me. I've been abusing Frankie. I sexually assaulted her. I have committed these heinous acts multiple times. I'm guilty. Which was beautifully acted, by the way, as he's somewhat full of regret, or is it full of, like, regret of the consequences that he's now facing? And Frankie just kind of hears that she has first closure, that he's finally admitted to the rape, finally admitted to that. And now he has admitted to everything. So she kind of first realizes it's all over, so just kind of that, and then that he's stopped lying in the end. He stopped lying. He's not gonna spend it anymore. He's gonna take his punishment, which I think admittedly isn't that great. I think it is like 2 years in a juvenile detention center and be on the sex offenders register, but still, it's everything he was trying to avoid. So, and that's closure, and that's the family. They have closure, and then they settle back into life in the village with JJ going to prison. Darren goes to see him, and while Darren sees him on his way out, and essentially is told, like, yeah, it's like, oh, I did the right thing, didn't I, Dad? And it's like, yeah, but you took too long. You know, you still made it as agonizing as possible for her. And that's the end. That is the end of the Frankie and JJ twincest sexual abuse storyline. A storyline that admittedly took a long time to get there, but still ended up being quite strong, all things considered. And even though it may have taken a lot longer to get to the place we wanted to be, JJ is still facing consequences for his actions, which to me makes it a really important thing and a really important cautionary, not cautionary tale. It's just a very important thing because now, in the end, JJ has paid the consequences for his actions. And for something that we didn't expect was necessarily going to happen, now it's finally happened. And it's been a brilliantly acted storyline the entire time. It has been fantastic. It pitted two fantastic young new actors to the show. New actors, Dylan Mulvey, Isabel Smith, one of whom is probably the best actress working in soap right now, or the best young actress working in soap right now, and Dylan Mulvey, who is tremendous. And it's not easy to play these darker roles. It's not easy to play the villain in a story where you're doing horrific stuff. You could really see the psyche behind JJ's actions. You could really see the tragedy in Frankie and how much she wanted to let everybody in. But if she let everybody in, maybe the secret would slip. And at that point, you can't, how do you go back from this? Do you want to blow up your family for no reason? But it is a good reason. It's a really important reason. And it shouldn't be happening to you. But still, do you still risk blowing up your family? Suzanne died. And, it's finally happened. It is finally, Frankie is now able to start to move on. Obviously, I don't think she'll be able to move on anytime soon, because it's a horrific ordeal that'll take a lot of years to ever come close to even being able to get through any of the trauma. But now, at the end of the day, she and the rest of the family can move on. She was calling Darren, Darren. She's calling Jack, She's calling Nancy, Nancy. She still calls Nancy, Nancy, but I know it sounds stupid when I'm saying like that, but now happily calls Darren Dad and calls Jack Granddad. And it's a really nice full circle moment to realize how far everybody's come in this development, with Frankie finally being ahead of the family and finally being the golden child, the favorite. And it's really good. I will admit, I did get a bit worried in the middle there. And honestly, we probably could have done without the JJ leukemia stuff, I'll be honest. Was it really a necessary part of the story? I think it makes it more important in a sense. But it does feel like a bit of a fake out in order to be like, he's not going to get justice, lol. And then they tease that he's going to die, but he doesn't die. There were a lot of very close, could have gone too far the other way moments, but they managed to know what the right outcome in the end was going to be, and they did finally give the abuser the comeuppance. They gave the victim their justice. And I still believe this is probably one of my favorite Hollyoaks storylines of all time. I would have to rewatch it fully to consolidate it, and I'm considering making a more scripted video discussing going through all the plot points and kind of in more specific detail and using footage and just telling the story to people who may not have wanted to have watched the whole storyline. I'm still considering doing that at some point. But yeah, it's just a really remarkable storyline. It's been brilliantly acted. It rightfully put Darren and Nancy as very important. I never used to understand Darren. I never really used to care for Ashley Taylor Dawson. Throughout this last couple of years of Hollyoaks, with the Charlie depression and anxiety storyline, and Darren's own struggling, it kind of made me realize that there is a lot more depth to Darren, and that they shouldn't be dictated by, yes, he makes all the silly, stupid jokes, but still, he pulls off a lot of really important scenes when he has to, and has that warmth, has that natural warmth. Not everybody can do it. Not everybody can appear to be a genuine, loving person. Some people just don't show any emotion whatsoever, but Darren puts his heart into everything, and that is shown with his relationship with Frankie. It's shown with his relationship with Nancy. I think it's a reason why I'm glad that Jack didn't die, because that would have been miserable, and Jack is an important piece of the puzzle, even if he's not necessarily used like one. But you need these core fundamentals to build a really good story, and I truly believe they built a fantastic story here. Now, here's my critique. I love the storyline. I think it's fantastic. I really do. I think it was a great storyline. I think it's probably my favorite Hollyoaks storyline of all time. I've watched through The Gloved Hand Killer. I watched through a good couple of storylines. I love this storyline with all my heart. And it'll be very hard to top because it has one of my favorite actor currently in soap, the youngest rising acting talent in soap, and also it pits two of my newer favorite characters in Darren and Nancy at the forefront. I truly love this. But this episode, and I know it's taken a long time to get here, this, obviously, the verdict was kind of played out over the 3 episodes. Mondays, you see the start of the trial. In Tuesdays, you see the continuation up until the cliffhanger. And then in Wednesdays, it ends. But the issue is, and it's been the issue of Hollyoaks over the last year or so, you have this really poignant finish, this really important finish to the story. Really emotional. It's over. In EastEnders, it would get a Julius thing. But because you stretched it over 3 episodes, it gets about 3 minutes. And the rest of this story is about the rest of this episode is about trying to tell about Jeremy's secret brown Death Note book. And Dodger being an undercover police officer. And it's like, guys, could you not have just had the main focus be Frankie? Could you not have just had this episode be about the Osborns finally getting justice for Frankie? JJ finally getting his comeuppance. But no, you surround it with not so great stuff. Like, I like Jez. I think he's interesting. Are the retcons great? No. Is Martha great? Maybe. She's getting there. Is Dilly's death something I want to be reminded of? No. So you have this really fantastic finish to a great storyline. And you just surround it with, oh, Jez is going to be the next serial killer. There's no way I'm going to kill Mother. Kind of like Norman Bates in Psycho. Just, yeah, there's no way I'm telling anyone, Mother. Like, and that's the sad bit now. That's the worrying part. This storyline's over now. I'm sure we'll still be feeling the aftermath of it. We'll still be hearing and we'll still be seeing Frankie struggles, but the storyline's over. This was that money ticket. This was Hollyoaks' big, important storyline that's kept it relevant. Because a lot of the other stuff that's happened this year, not that well done. You know, bit rushed. Oh, we're going to make Rex and Steve get together. Oh, just kidding. Rex can be a bad boy. We're now going to do a social issue. Oh, Jez is actually not like Patrick. He's not like Patrick. No, he's actually worse than Patrick in the end. Like, where? So that's my biggest fear. I think that this storyline being over, we now need to see what Hollyoaks is going to do next. Because a lot of the supporting storylines and the supporting stuff around this time have not been great. They really have not been great. But I'll give them full credit. They did the storyline justice. They did the storyline correctly. They did what they were supposed to do. I could still give or take the JJ leukemia storyline, but at the end of the day, it pitted great actors. It pitted a really strong script, and it finally shed the light, and it finally gave us the truth, and it gave us the justice, the victory that we all wanted and needed. So at the end of the day, all I really have to do is commend Hollyoaks. They have fully made it they fully wrapped around the storyline. They made it really important piece. So I think that, I guess another thing, I wish the sentence was harsher, but I guess it's realistic that you probably wouldn't get that much of a sentence anyways, because he's still young. That's a bit of a glaring issue. But yeah, all in all, fantastic storyline. Favorite storyline Hollyoaks has ever done. I think they've done a really good job of it. I am slightly apprehensive towards the future, kind of recognizing what they will actually do next. However, I am quite content knowing that this is the outcome we've had. They didn't fumble the bag this time. And once again, full credit. I know I've said this many times, and maybe getting old at this point. Full credit to Dylan Mulvey, Isabel Smith. I forget Nancy's actress, but she was fantastic. Ashley Taylor Dawson. And there's I don't remember Jackson actor either. But yeah, all played a pivotal part in a groundbreaking storyline. And I wasn't lying when I said this might be one of the most groundbreaking storylines in soap history. And it has been. So full credit. Hats off to you. But what did you think about this storyline? Did you get the conclusion you wanted? Was it as satisfying as you thought it would be? Tell me in the comment section down below. Also, suggest whatever you want me to talk about in the comment section. Likewise. Thanks for watching. I've been Ash from Watching Walford. See you in the next one. Bye-bye.